This is the DJI RS3 Mini, my current favorite gimbal of all time. This is the Hohem MT3 Pro, which may possibly replace my favorite gimbal of all time, and there are some very good reasons for that, which we'll dive into. But first, I want to make a confession. I also really hate gimbals. Are you even a YouTuber if you don't have a gimbal? Are you even a gimbal if you don't have a YouTuber?
What was his point? I have no idea.
So Hohem did send the MT3 Pro to me to review, to keep, but no money changed hands and they do not have any say in the final video. And I still hate gimbals and YouTubers. I hate them both, but particularly gimbals. So let's see how this review is going to go. Full transparency, I tried my best to buy into the whole gimbal craze, and I couldn't. I bought different gimbals. They sat on my shelf. I never used them. When I used them, I didn't like them. They just didn't do it for me. I'm old school. I came from a spoiled place where on my first film we used an actual real Steadicam and a dolly, and gimbals are not as good as those things and just don't give you the same type of feel to your camera movements. I also like using manual lenses, which don't pair well with gimbal use as a general rule. And honestly, anytime I dusted off my Zhiyun Crane 2S for a shoot, three things would happen. First, my arms would start to tremble and cry from fatigue. Then my back would start to spasm and cry from strain and stiffness. And then finally, I would start to cry, which was very embarrassing on client shoots. But the tide began to turn when I was provided the Hohem M7 gimbal to review for my smartphone. This gimbal was lightweight, it was easy to use, and perfect for getting smooth tracking shots. This was not the gimbal experience I was used to. Was the AI voice a little disconcerting?
I can't allow you to do that, Di. We must complete the mission. Sit down and finish the mission.
Sure, but overall this was a great option. And so it opened the door to a question. Are gimbals actually kind of fun to use now? Do I no longer hate gimbals as much? Just YouTubers? We all know about the approaching singularity, but have we reached gimbalarity? So in my revisiting of this accessory, I started using the DJI RS3 Mini, and it did change my perspective on the usefulness of gimbals and their application in my work. This opinion was only reinforced with the introduction of the greatest mirrorless camera currently on the market. Yes, the Nikon ZR. Lightweight, massive screen, good autofocus, the perfect camera to pair with a lightweight gimbal and shoot for hours with no crying back. Gimbal. But the RS3 Mini definitely had its limitations. Its payload was just a bit too small to comfortably use with my bigger lenses, and I would from time to time have it pack a sad on me. So I was considering a DJI RS4 Mini or even the DJI RS5 when Hohem, I barely know him,
Baylor, I hardly know her.
Damn it, Michael, pay attention, man.
reached out again and offered to send me their new iSteady MT3 Pro for review, which is essentially a souped up version of their smartphone, the iSteady M7. The MT3 Pro has a lot of the same features, but better and for proper mirrorless cameras. But yes, you can also use it with your phone or even action camera. I think the biggest problem with traditional gimbals is simply that they're too heavy. Once you place your camera on them and start utilizing these tracking shots, you're sweating within a matter of minutes. They just get too heavy too quickly, and as soon as they feel too heavy, you get worse at using them. And if you're filming a whole day of interviews, for example, all you have done is open yourself up to a world of pain. Back. Gimbal. But with the RS3 and 4 Mini, DJI managed to make a gimbal that's strong enough to hold a decent sized camera, while still being light enough to actually operate for hours at a time without the back-breaking part. But these lightweight gimbals are limiting. Heavier lenses just won't work with them, and even lighter lenses can occasionally be problematic.
Sorry, cut.
It's a good thing, yes.
Did the fucking bait.
The MT3 Pro kind of sits in between the DJI RS4 Mini and the DJI RS5. The MT3 payload is 2.5 kg versus the 2 kg of the RS4 Mini and the 3 kg of the RS5. This means you can start introducing your heavier zoom lenses with the MT3 that you just can't with the RS Minis. The MT3 weighs 1070 grams versus the 900 grams of the Mini, which is slightly heavier but still very lightweight and much lighter than the 1476 grams of the DJI RS5. Battery life of the MT3 is rated at 20 hours versus the 14 hours of the RS5 and 13 hours of the RS4 Mini, but that is not factoring in the use of the AI tracking module, so realistically the runtimes are going to be probably more similar. And for the sake of my fellow New Zealand and Australians, the cost of the newly released MT3 Pro is $799. The cost of the RS5 is $839, but that's without the AI tracking module, which is built into the MT3 Pro. With the DJI tracking module, the RS5 is $999 or $200 more than the MT3. However, the RS4 Mini combo with the tracking module is currently the cheapest at $529, making it $170 less than the MT3 Pro at the time of recording. So while it's placed in between these two DJI models, it's also priced in between them as well. But the MT3 Pro does have some nice features that the DJIs currently do not have. And first, let's talk about that AI tracking module. All three gimbals can have this module, but the MT3 Pro is the only one with it actually built into the gimbal itself. It's not an add-on. This is good because you're not having to pay extra for the AI tracker and you don't have to worry about it falling off or losing it, which is an issue with all of these magnetic style attachments. The OLED touchscreen remote on the back of the MT3 Pro is detachable and has its own video screen, so you can set this gimbal up, move to where you want to be, then manually adjust using the preview monitor on the touchscreen and controlling from the touchscreen to get the perfect frame. It can act as a remote control. There is no camera touchscreen in the RS4 Mini, and while the RS5 has a similar screen built into the back of the gimbal, you can't detach it and use it as a remote in the same way. So the MT3 Pro has a big advantage here if you feel like you want to be making adjustments or controlling the gimbal fluidly without actually holding the gimbal. And that's kind of the whole point of some of these tracking modes. This is a gimbal for the content creator who has no friends. And let's be honest, that's you. Nigel No Mates, sitting there with your little pieces to camera, shouting into the void, hoping someone bumps you a like and a sub for your troubles. The AI tracker uses hand gestures, aka sign language, to determine when to follow you, when to stop following you, and even how to reframe based on these gestures. This means stop following. This means reframe the tracker. And this means follow. Or you can just use the remote OLED touchscreen to find your subject and track them by painting a box around them and double tapping until the box turns green. Either way, it is very simple and intuitive and quick to do. Now, is the AI tracker a gimmick or is it useful when you're not filming yourself? Well, I have to say yes, because what gimbals are not good at and what exposes bad gimbal work is the micro adjustments when tracking subjects. Traditionally, you have to move with your subject or pan the gimbal left or right if your subject changes their direction or stops walking straight. And it always looks kind of a little bit bad. You're always a little bit behind. But with the AI track, the gimbal will do the heavy lifting of those adjustments for you, and you can just concentrate on that smooth ninja walk. It's also really good for creating dynamic product shots where you're tracking that object. The AI tracker is great if you're using this gimbal as a tripod and you want it to follow you. And if you have an arm of steel, you can also use it to very good effect in selfie mode for those insanely smooth vlog pieces to camera. You also do have this built-in film light as well, which is quite useful when you just want to get a bit more light on your subject in a very dark area. It's not something you use all the time, but it's definitely a useful accessory to have built in, and it does full CCT and RGB colors. You can directly connect your camera to the gimbal via USB-C for camera control, and you can also charge your camera via the USB-C port, which is also very useful if you're worried about the camera battery life while working with the MT3 Pro. And there is also an app to help assist in control of the gimbal and camera. Ultimately for me, the MT3 Pro still sits in that nice lightweight category.
Lightweight, baby!
Where I can happily carry this setup around for hours, and I can take it in my bag when traveling without that bag getting too heavy. It is light and it feels much more like an extension of your camera setup rather than another piece of bulky equipment. It also keeps things simple. I used my Nikon ZR along with the Nikon G 20mm 1.8 lens, and I don't have a monitor or an external battery. If I want to get tighter detail stuff, I can swap the lens to my Viltrox 55mm. That's it. Simple. No fuss, no stress, and most importantly, no bulk.
Yeah, buddy!
I also like the fact that you can use this gimbal with your phone as well as your regular camera, so it is flexible. And with some fiddling, you can also get it into vertical mode relatively quickly. Now, switching out to the phone attachment is actually surprisingly quick and easy. And because it's such a powerful gimbal, it lets you use some additional lenses or filter attachments and hard drives on your phone with absolutely no issues. I was impressed with how quick you could set up your smartphone coming from using a regular camera with it. This experience with lightweight gimbals has finally made me acknowledge how useful a tool it can be. And it's also kind of changed the way that I use the gimbals, the smoother operator. This is when it's just an additional stabilization point for smooth handheld work. I'm not trying to do any movements, I'm just keeping it in one place to do one thing, but keep those movements gentle and at peace. And then the final way I like to use it is what I call the high plains drifter. Now this is actually my favorite way to use the gimbal. In this mode, I will have my A cam set up to record an interview, and then I will float around with my B cam on the gimbal, drifting back and forth, often catching the other camera in shot, making it look almost like a BTS cam sometimes, and finding different angles and essentially trying to create the idea that the interview was filmed by many cameras rather than just two. If it's a long interview, I will then just set the gimbal down somewhere and have it capturing a second angle like it's a tripod. And yes, every now and again, I might try a slow push-in or a parallax on something, but that's not my forte. Generally, I'm in drifter mode with this gimbal. Now, this new style means that I've gone from never using a gimbal on my shoots to maybe filming with it every second shoot I go on. And the size and weight of the MT3 Pro means I can very easily put it in the top compartment of my camera bag rather than have to take it separately. But what are the downsides to this gimbal? Well, mainly I found it was the balancing. I spent a long time trying to balance this gimbal, and it did feel like a bit of a battle at times. I just found that sliding the different arms was sticky and hard to do, which made the micro adjustments when making corrections also harder to do. And then if you wanted to swap lenses with the RS3 Mini, you could often get away without really rebalancing it, but I found that the MT3 Pro, even changing to a similar lens, does need to be rebalanced and recalibrated. On the new RS5, they've added little adjustment knobs to control each of the arms, which makes that adjustment to balance process much quicker and easier. And that is definitely one thing that is missing from this MT3 Pro. And even with the RS3 Mini, I found that process to be more fluid. The adjustment piece on the RS3 Mini seems to be in a better position for those quick rebalances. And I didn't need to set up the gimbal to be perfectly balanced as often. I could kind of just half-ass it and the motors would do the rest for me. The other issue is that the AI tracker itself, while it's a great tool, it has its limitations. Mainly that the tracking camera is on the side of your gimbal. So the closer your subject gets to the gimbal, the less accurate your frame is, and you'll find your subject might start to get cropped because of the difference between the frame size you see on your camera versus the frame size you see on the gimbal's camera. And this can also be an issue when using longer lenses because the field of view is so different with the gimbal camera lens being at maybe a 20mm equivalent. And so again, you're running into issues when you're using say a 50 or an 85mm lens because the AI tracking camera doesn't match what the actual camera lens sees. The only other con is that while it's great that you can take the AI camera touchscreen off to use as a remote control for the gimbal, this is only attached by a magnet. So if you lose this remote, the gimbal just becomes completely useless. And while it is secure and it doesn't easily fall off, I do think that it could potentially get knocked off or get lost, and then you have a gimbal you can't use. So ideally in future updates, this should be slightly more securely attached, so you don't risk losing it because the magnets just couldn't hold it for some reason. On the plus side, I do notice the strength of these gimbal motors on the MT3 Pro are definitely better than those of the RS3 Mini. And you can see that in the footage as it just feels a little bit smoother. Even when you're not doing your ninja walk, it can just ease out your footsteps in a way that the RS3 Mini can't. So once it's balanced, it does do a really good job. I also think that with the MT3 Pro sitting between the DJI RS4 Mini and the RS5, it really needs to be priced just a little bit cheaper. I do think this represents good value for money at its current price, but when compared to what you get with the RS4 Mini combo package, it feels like the pricing of the MT3 Pro should just be a little bit closer to that $500 Australian mark to get more people interested in moving away from DJI's proven track record. At the end of the day, Hohem have to work harder and price their gimbals aggressively in this environment to get more people buying them instead of their RS4 Mini. All that said, this does feel like a really nice upgrade to my RS3 Mini, and it does a lot of things better. It can take heavier lenses, and it has this great AI camera module that I can more easily operate by myself. I would like to see it priced a little lower, but as it stands, I will be making this gimbal my main gimbal going forward. So if you were an anti-gimbal guy like me, it might be worth reconsidering your stance and looking at the MT3 Pro. If you need something a little more heavy duty than the RS Minis, this is a good in-between gimbal that could save you a lot of energy on set versus the much heavier RS5. If you found this video helpful and want to support me or the channel, you can use my affiliate links. If you need help with your film, book a one-on-one consultation with me or simply watch my feature films, which are available free to stream on Amazon Prime and Tubi. Links are also in the description. As always, I am the savage gimbal-toting filmmaker, and I will see ya when I see ya. Sounded weird. The see yas didn't flow so well as normally. Sorry about that.